if I could move, sir, to the issues raised by Shri Vinayak Roth, the creation of courts on eastern and western seas. My answer has already covered that. Shri Kalyan Banerjee raised two issues. One was abolishing mandatory death penalty, that I have answered. Then creating manpower and capacity for building marine police. I think this is a very important point. It is something which government will certainly take note of and give attention to. Then, sir, Shri Alok Kumar Suman had said that we should have consulted more countries before we drafted the amendment. I would like to share with the House, sir, that the Standing Committee actually looked at a number of other international legislation. And they looked particularly at legislation in Australia, New Zealand, Sri Lanka and UK, because the legal systems were very similar. And many of these countries already had legislation on the subject. So there was a best practices effort made before we drafted this bill. Regarding, he has spoken about internal coordination, international cooperation. Both are matters which I have already addressed. He's also spoken about creating a capacity building in this country to respond to to piracy situation. As I mentioned, some of this is already in the making, and certainly this, as with our SOPs and coordination, this will improve. One legal point he raised was whether we should focus on extraditing people of Indian origin who are involved in piracy. Sir, the bill which we have moved along with the government amendment does not provide for differential treatment of citizens of various nationalities. So for us, an act of piracy is an act of piracy. We cannot make a separate reference to PIOs in this regard. We have also, the issue of death penalty is also something he raised, I have addressed. Then Sir Kumar Danish Ali Danish Ali ji had raised two issues. One was, of course, death penalty. I have replied to that. And secondly, whether life imprisonment should be for entire life. This is a legitimate issue, but it is not an issue for this House and for the government to decide. It is a matter for the courts to take a call on. Then Supriya Suleji had referred to the fact that there was no mention of cyber attack in the bill. So cyber attack is a very serious matter. It is a very legitimate concern, but it is outside the purview of this bill because this bill is focused on piracy. So there are separate legislation and separate efforts underway to deal with cyber attacks, which is a growing concern. So I have taken note of the concern. But I do believe that this is not a matter to be included here. Her concern about presumption of guilt, I have already answered. Then, sir, Shri E.T. Mohammed Bashir ji had moved for one for the fact the definition of the word vessel should be expanded. I believe we have met his requirements through the government amendment. He has also referred to prosecuting pirates irrespective of their nationality. That also under Section 9 has been met. He has spoken about the costs of piracy and how we will counter it. The cost cannot be quantified, but obviously it's a very serious matter, which is why we are moving the legislation. And he has spoken about government responsibility for countering piracy. We take our responsibility very seriously. Defense and Navy have their SOPs. Shipping has its SOP, and we are moving this legislation. Then, sir, Shri N.K. Premachandran ji is, I believe, moving some amendments. His first concern was that with regard to police officer, that it should not be below the rank of a DSP. So in the CRPC, sir, a police officer, even of the rank of SHO, can make arrests. So we have gone with what is the standard CRPC definition. Similarly, the issue of gazetted officer, whether he has sought to insert the word not below the rank of under secretary. We have actually deleted the word gazetted. We have just kept officer because different states have different practices and we want to respect all of them. and the High Court issued the consulting and consent I have already dealt with. He has spoken about the need for in section 9 to insert the word in writing for a request. That entire section has been deleted in the government amendment, sir, because of the need. We feel that it will, in a piracy situation, it is difficult to communicate with a ship. So we should actually avoid that and leave it for the authorized ship to take necessary action. His point about substituting the word reasonable opportunity for opportunity, the government amendment has taken care of it. Presumption of guilt, I have already replied. Mandatory death penalty, I have already replied. And regarding a ship situation in Nigeria, sir, it's a ship called MV Heroic Idun. I want to, because a number of members raised the issue, I want to inform them that the crew members have been charged on 3 counts. Their case hearing is coming up on 10th, 11th January. We are providing them legal support, we are giving them consular support, and we will do whatever we can to help them in the circumstances. Then, sir, I come to Sri K. Suresh's concerns. One was regarding the area of jurisdiction. I think the amended definition of jurisdiction, which includes EEZ and all waters beyond the jurisdiction of other states, deals with the matter. The issue regarding the imprisonment, I have dealt with as well. As regards the rarest of the rare and death matters, this too is something which I have already addressed. And regarding, he had some concerns about Indian courts not having jurisdiction in some cases. That has been deleted as part of the government amendments. And he was concerned that how does the law treat a foreign government's naval force? And what I want to clarify is that nothing in the proposed bill will apply to a warship or a government-owned ship employed for non-commercial service. So these, sir, were discussed earlier. Today Shri Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary ji also spoke on the bill, sir. One, of course, he was kind enough to note what he called my activities around the world. I appreciate that very much. I want to inform the House, sir, through you, that I was in New York to chair the UN Security Council, which is a matter of great pride for all of India. And the two issues which came up were the reformed multilateralism and counter-terrorism, both, that is UNSC reform and counter-terrorism, both of which are very, very important and subject of national consensus in this House. He referred to the G20 issue. It is outside the purview of the bill, but I want to tell him that this is a moment when the world is looking for Indian leadership. So if the world values India's leadership, I would urge all sections of India, including... because something is rotational doesn't mean you are not valued. So then sir, sir, in passing, the honourable member also suggested government is indifferent, he used the word, indifferent to China. So I want to say something, sir. If we were indifferent to China, who sent the Indian army to the borders to defend our borders? If we were indifferent to China, why are we today pressing China on disengagement and de-escalation? Why are we saying publicly that our ties are not normal? So we have no problem if there is political differences, if there is even political criticism. I have heard sometimes that my own understanding needs to be deepened. When I see who is giving the advice, I can only bow in respect. But I think we should not directly or indirectly criticize our Jawans. Yeah. When our Jawans, sir, are standing, sir, our Jawans are standing, sir, in Yangtze, in Yangtze at 13,000 feet. Yeah. At 13,000 feet, they are standing there defending our border. they do not deserve to have the word pitai. The word pitai should not be used for our Jawans, sir. Sir, our Jawans are standing their ground, so they should be respected, they should be honored, they should be appreciated. This is not something which is appropriate. So then, sir, let me come sir, come to the bill. One is the penalty, the graded penalties which apply. The graded penalties apply. There's no confusion out here. For certain offences, death can apply. For certain offences, life imprisonment can apply. Certain offences, 10 years will apply. Certain offences, 14 years will apply. The court will decide which of these offences come under which category. And finally, sir, on the bilateral extradition and bilateral arrangement, I think Sri Adhiranjan Chaudhary ji has a very valid point. It is something we have covered under Article 14. I certainly appreciate what he said, that on this issue, the issue of countering piracy, there is a sense of unanimity in the House. So I hope that the entire House will support the bill.